So I haven't made a video in a while, but there has been progress. I've been making, doing work and everything, and I've also been learning as usual. And so there are more insights that I would love to cover, and also, um, I guess the point of this video, the main purpose of this video, is like the title says, gaslighting or brainwashing myself into believing in my idea. An idea that I've been thinking about lately is that it's not really the strength of the idea itself. You could have genuinely like a really bad idea with a lot of opposition, but if a founder believes in it enough, then he'll just naturally outwork and outsmart and outcompete all the competitors, and he'll be on top. And it will eventually turn into a good idea. It will eventually turn into a product that the market looks for, just based on enough iterations. And there's also just like other examples. Like I was listening to the story of the founder of Sony, and he kind of falls into that group of founders who carved their own markets. They didn't do market research. They told the market what it needs. So other examples include Steve Jobs, Edwin Land, and then the founder of Sony. And it's kind of a similar position to where I am currently. I was actually doing some research for the paid ads that I'm going to launch. So I went on the Facebook ads library and also the Google transparency library, whatever it's called. And I set the location to the United Kingdom, and then I included GCSE as one of the search terms, and every single ad was just about tutoring, specifically for like just tutors, like specific subjects. And there's two options, right? I could go to the Red Ocean, I think that's what it's called, the Red Ocean, and try to be the best tutor, but not really get paid that much. Or I could carve out my own market, which is what I'm doing. So instead of focusing on the tutors, I actually make that the common enemy. And I say, you know what, let me be controversial, let me be polarizing, and let me say, you know what, tutoring is not actually what's going to get your child the top grades. It's going to be the other stuff. The exam techniques and the mentality and just their overall health and all of that stuff. And so that's kind of the idea that I'm working with now. And I think that's just a good summary of the decisions that I've made in the past. I don't see myself as the type of person to pick something that's common and then be really, really good at it. What I see myself, at least in the decisions that I've made, is that I try to kind of look for that blue ocean and then try to be moderately good at it. And I think that's one of the downsides of my personality, which is once I do find that blue ocean, I won't put 100% effort. Like I'll probably put like 80% effort. So I think that's something to definitely work on, kind of unlocking that 120% effort, and that will just turn me into a beast. So yeah, that's just an idea I've been thinking about. And I guess the point is kind of brainwashing myself into believing in my own idea so that there's no doubt. The way I see it, the trend I see, and this is based on personal experience and also kind of seeing people around me and everything, no one really cares about lectures anymore. No one really cares about, attending lectures and focusing on the professor, and thinking that if the professor can't teach something, then they're doomed, because how else are they going to learn it? Almost everyone I know, or at least the majority of people, they just teach themselves the content, and a large majority of that happens through AI. It's only made it easier. It's gotten to a point where I think throughout my whole university degree so far, I'm in my third year, so I've taken 25 courses so far. There's probably one or two courses that I've focused on in terms of the lectures itself, and not a single course have I fully focused on for the whole course, as in I always kind of just give up halfway through, because I know that I could teach myself something much easier. And I really think that the trend is going to continue, especially with high school, GCSEs and A-levels, and also other systems. There's going to be less of an importance on the quality of the teacher in terms of how they explain, because all of that can just be absolutely steam run by AI. Like AI can just explain something so much better, especially if it's simple concepts that are very widely taught, like GCSEs and A-levels. Like I can rely on AI for more niche topics. In university, like every university is different, right? Every course is different. Every professor teaches it in a slightly different way. But with GCSEs and A-levels, they are standardized, which means they're very, very common. And so AI can actually get really, really good at teaching that type of stuff. And so the whole point of a teacher and a tutor becomes redundant. So that's kind of the trend that I see. And so we know that education is not going to go anywhere. So if not tutoring, then what else is there to capitalize on? This is kind of something that I was actually writing the script for the webinar, and through that, it kind of forced me to come up with new concepts. I've been teaching how to study for GCSEs and A levels for 3 years now, right? My channel I started I think 3 years ago, and I'm still coming up with new concepts. And one of the concepts I came up with is that for someone to do well in an exam, there's 4 different things that have to be accounted for. First of all, their understanding of the content. Second, their application of that content. Second, the recollection of the content, and then third, the application of the content, and then fourth, their time management. So those are the 4 things. Having a tutor can only help with the first thing. Let me repeat that. Out of the 4 things that matter, the 4 things that are going to determine your grade, hiring a tutor, and by extension, school in general, so like your teachers at school and all of that, they only help with the first thing. Because your teacher is not going to help you recall the information on the exam. Your teacher is not really going to help you apply the information unless they've kind of designed this whole elaborate homework system that makes sure that you cover all of the topics and you do all the practice questions. But let's be honest, no one does that. And then most importantly, maybe not most importantly, but the one that's definitely neglected the most, your tutor is definitely not going to help with time management. That's just a skill that you're going to have to build on your own. The most they can do is kind of throw you in the deep end with mocks and practice exams and all of that. But again, they're not really going to help you with time management. And so if we give them equal weightings, which they probably don't even have equal weightings, to be honest, because understanding it's important, but you could brute force understanding by just memorizing the whole syllabus. I've done it before. I've memorized questions that I didn't really understand, but you could brute force it. But let's say they're all equal. That your tutor, if they're all equal, let's say they all have 25% importance, then your tutor will only help with 25% of you getting the top grades. Now, why that's significant is because all of the money, or really the market right now, at least what we see, is that all of the money is being thrown at tutors, while no money is being thrown at other stuff, like helping people recollect information, recall information, helping people apply that information, helping people with their time management, all of that. Now, why that's important is, like we touched upon in the beginning of the video, AI is very, very quickly replacing the need for a tutor, making them redundant. And so the focus is going to shift, because money has to be flowing somehow, right? And so when a parent sees that their student is struggling, and it's not necessarily, the student is not struggling with understanding because, well, they have AI for that, right? The student is struggling with other stuff, the recollection, the application, the time management. The teacher, the parent is then going to want to invest their money, especially if they care about their children and they're pretty affluent, into helping those other aspects. And so that's where I come in. That's where my full suite high-ticket program is going to cover all of that stuff. I'm going to cover understanding. I'm not going to teach the students. I'm going to give them the tools that they'll use to be able to understand, to recall, to apply, and to have that time management. And that's kind of been the whole philosophy of my channel so far. I've always talked about how I think I realized it more recently when I started targeting parents, because there is kind of a pain point with parents, which is like they're spending money on these tutors, and if they're not seeing results, then that's kind of a pain point, right? While the students don't really care because they're not the ones paying. And so I've kind of started realizing it more and more. I'm kind of cutting out my own markets, my own portion of the markets, and inshallah, I think this could really be something, inshallah. And so yeah, that's 9 minutes of me kind of brainwashing myself into believing in my own idea. Because listen, if I don't believe in it, then who else is going to believe in it, right? And I was kind of also listening to. So I was in the gym. I was hitting legs, and I was listening to the Founders podcast talking about the founder of Sony. And I should have probably written it down, but it was kind of not verbatim, but roughly talking about how you genuinely have to spoon feed the markets what you think your innovation is going to be. And so in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of people who kind of have that objection of, you know what, it's just, let me just get another tutor. I'm just one tutor away from top grades for my child and all of that stuff. But I just have to be persistent, and I have to find the right people and keep at it until until I've kind of shifted the market into my favor, and people are convinced of my teachings. You know how it's not really the tutors that are going to affect the grades. It's going to be the other stuff, the three other stuff that we talked about, especially with AI kind of replacing tutors in general. So yeah, let me also check my notes app, because this doesn't strictly have to be about me kind of brainwashing myself. There are some insights that I've written down over the past couple of weeks. So I did read the book Essentialism, and kind of have some insights from it. Essentialism was very, very similar to The One Thing. They actually share a lot of different. They share a lot of opinions, not opinions. A lot of ideas are kind of interchangeable between the two books. But it was a really good book. It was kind of focused more on kind of saying no rather than focusing on the one thing. And so let me just read some of the insights that I made. So this is a quote from John Maxwell. We live in a world where almost everything is worthless, and very few things are exceptionally valuable. You cannot underestimate the unimportance of practically everything. I think the second part is the quote from John Maxwell. You cannot overestimate the unimportance of practically everything. I think that's a really, really good quote. Almost everything is unimportant. There's very, very few things that are actually important. What you need to do is find those things and just dedicate 100% of your time and effort to them. I'm kind of seeing that more and more, just living my uni life. There's a lot of distractions, to be honest, especially if you're just hanging out with people who just go through the motions. You know, they apply to clubs, as in like engineering clubs and all that stuff. They apply to internships. Maybe they'll do research over the summer, for example. And most of those stuff, if you try to tie it in with your bigger mission and all of that, they're mostly unimportant. It's just distractions. Anyways, second insight. A non-essentialist thinks almost everything is essential. An essentialist thinks almost everything is non-essential. So it just kind of ties back to the point of almost everything is not important. Very few things actually deserve your attention. And then this is something that I've been using more and more lately, and I like it. It's very simple, but it's a very good kind of heuristic to use when it comes to decision making. If it's not an ecstatic yes, then it's a no. If you're not 100% satisfied, 100% excited about saying yes, you should probably say no. I've kind of used this more and more with small stuff and also big stuff. I applied to, I was kind of just bashing clubs, but actually applied to a club 2 weeks ago. And it was kind of out of the fear of, if this whole Shigs thing doesn't work out, I still need something on my resume to kind of land a technical internship or something. So I'm like, let me apply for a technical position. Anyways, I speak to the guy. I like the project a lot. I like him as well. Seems like inshallah, he'll be a very successful guy. But I tell him, like, I'll be honest, I like your idea. I'm just looking for like a technical type of a role. And then he comes back to me a couple of days later and he says, listen, I've kind of reviewed all the applications. I'm going to take other people for the technical roles, but I still really want you to be part of the team. So like, do you want to be a business strategist, for example? And I'm not going to lie, I thought about it for at least a split second. But then I told myself, wait, if it's not an ecstatic yes, then it should be a no. Do I really need to be a business strategist? Like, I'm already focused on like School of Yallah and this and all of that. And I don't need the business experience. It's just like it's a project. It could go high, but I'm already doing like business stuff. The whole point was kind of like the backup plan. And I'm kind of glad I made the decision, because now, first of all, I don't have a plan B when it comes to the whole technical side. Maybe that's a good thing. And then also I have this on my plate. And then lastly, make your peace with the fact that saying no often requires trading popularity for respect. Wow, I completely forgot about this one, but it's actually very, very impactful. So let me repeat that. Make your peace with the fact that saying no often requires trading popularity for respect. There's also kind of a thought that I've had a couple of times, which is there are a couple of people in my life that I see a lot, and I guess I'll call them popular, but I see them a lot, as in, they're always on campus, and I hang out with them a lot as well. And like, I'm probably one of them as well. I'm always on campus because I live here, and so I'm just always there. Like, people see me every single day, right? And so I guess in a sense, like, I'm popular, as in, like, I know a lot of people and all that stuff. But there are also some people that I really, really respect, but I'll only see them maybe once a week, maybe even less. So yeah, I guess I need to make my peace with the fact that saying no often requires trading popularity for respect. Saying no might make me less popular in the long run because I'm, attending less events or hanging out with less people. But in the long term, then it's going to be more respect. Let me see if there's any other insights that I want to talk about. Okay, so I was listening to a Chris Williamson podcast, and I think it was the 999 episode special, which was really good. I really liked it. But what I especially took note of was a segment that he called Rules for Overthinking. So I'm not going to really comment on this much because the video is already long enough, but this is kind of some notes that I made while I was in the gym. I think I was hitting legs as well. So the first one is, your brain ruminates because it hates uncertainty so much. It would rather imagine a catastrophe than deal with the uncertainty of what the future holds. So your brain ruminates because it hates uncertainty so much. It would rather imagine a catastrophe than deal with the uncertainty of what the future holds. Second one, fear holds you prisoner. Whatever you fear establishes the boundaries of your freedom. If you're afraid of heights, you'll stay low. That one's powerful, man. It's scary. Fear holds you prisoner. Whatever you fear establishes the boundaries of your freedom. I guess to kind of touch upon that a bit, I need to find out what freedoms I want to have. To what extent do I want to go with my life? As in, what life do I want to live? And then work backwards and figure out what fears I have to overcome to reach that. For example, let's say I want to get married, then one of the fears that I'm going to have to overcome is approaching the girl and her family for marriage. That's just an example, nothing to do with current life affairs. And then the last thing that I took note of, if I'm worth anything later, I'm worth something now. For wheat is wheat, even if people think it's grass in the beginning. And I think this was a Van Gogh quote. So if I'm worth anything later, I'm worth something now. For wheat is wheat, even if people think it's grass in the beginning. And also, before kind of ending this off, there's also a quote from Michael Dell, which I don't remember word by word. I tried having Siri dictate it on the notes because I didn't have my phone. I just had my AirPods when I was in the bathroom. But it didn't work for some reason. Siri is just garbage. But anyways, it was something along the lines of, people said I was cocky. Maybe I was. However, maybe I was a little bit. However, I'm actually going to find the quotes because it's hugely impactful. Michael Dell quote. Full of himself, I think. Oh my god. Oh yeah. Wait. Whatever, man. I'm gonna find it eventually. But it was something along the lines of, maybe I was a bit full of myself, but I had to be because otherwise nothing important happens. Something like that. And I've been called cocky a lot by a lot of my friends and family members, and I'm kind of trying to figure out if that's a bad thing or a good thing. 100%, like, I shouldn't have pride, and my Islamic beliefs kind of, they come above every other podcast or book I read. That being said, I don't think I have pride in the sense that I genuinely think that I'm better than others, or that in the sight of Allah I'm better than others. But the cockiness that I have is just kind of like a self-inflicted confidence of, I genuinely believe that I could do anything and I could be the best at anything. It's just I don't know. I have that cockiness. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Based on the founders that I'm learning about, they all had it. In fact, they had it to an even greater extent. So listen, we'll see where it goes, but I need to keep myself in check. Like if I genuinely think that it's turning into arrogance and pride, then of course that has to be put in check. But if it's just a cockiness of like just me backing myself no matter what, so be it. Nothing important happens if people don't believe in themselves. Anyways, every time I make a video, it becomes longer and longer than the other video, than the previous video. But whatever.